गुड इवनिंग, नमस्कार और स्वराज अभियान के ये लाइव हैंगआउट में आपका स्वागत है. Tonight we have Prashant ji with us who will be taking questions which have been submitted via the website, the Twitter site, YouTube comments and the form, and he'll be explaining and answering quite a few questions and that you have sent in. So would like to welcome Prashant ji, and before we sort of kickstart with the questions, I want him to give a message that he might have for the rest of the viewers, as well as I will give you a short update on Jai Kisan Andolan. So as you know, today is the 5th of August and it's the 5th day of the Jai Kisan Andolan, which has traveled through Tikriwala. It started from Tikriwala in Punjab, and it has traveled through the villages of Punjab and reached Haryana yesterday. And the response and the feedback from the people and the farmers as we have traveled, all the Kisans that we have met, has been tremendous. And there has been a common thread and the worry about income levels that they get from farming, the compensation, the lack of compensation, and the issues they face around that has been one of the major recurring themes. There have been a lot of local problems where the government has not itself complied with the laws. For example, in Haryana, where compensation has been not given as stated by the law. So those are some of the issues that are cropping up. Yogendra ji will be covering this in once the Jai Kisan Andolan has finished, and we will be covering that in greater detail. But for today, I would like you all to welcome Prashant ji. And Prashant ji, welcome to the Hangout. And we would like you to give a short message on anything to the rest of the viewers before we start the questions.
Well, good evening everybody, and good morning to those who are in the US. As you all know, lots of things have been happening in India. Of course, the Jai Kisan Andolan is in full swing, and the Jai Kisan Yatra, which is being led by Yogenji, is right now passing through Haryana. Many other things have also been happening in this country, some by stealth, some by which are publicized. Some of the things which you might not know, which are happening by stealth, are amendments to the Prevention of Corruption Act, amendments to the Whistleblower Protection Act, which are intended to dilute and in fact virtually destroy both the Prevention of Corruption Act as well as the Whistleblower Protection Act. Another thing which you might also, some of you might be aware of, is that two very corrupt vigilance commissioners have been appointed by this government, whose appointments we have challenged in the Supreme Court, and that challenge is pending. It will be heard by the Supreme Court very soon. All those things are happening apart from all those publicized things about Yakub Memon's hanging and the some terrorist who was caught today, and these train accidents, etc., etc. So now I think I'll take the questions if Raj would go ahead with the questions.
Thank you, Prashant ji. So the latest topic, as you have just expanded, is about the Yakub Memon hanging and your actions and your actions on that front, and your last minute try to intervene with the Supreme Court as such. There have been a lot of questions and from a lot of supporters all over the world, including this one, where I'll read out the question, which is from Hari Narayan from Lagos and Samir Pradhan from Thane. So we'd like to know your views about capital punishment and hanging of Yakub Memon in particular. They feel that your midnight efforts were anti-national and pro-terrorist. Don't you think you could have taken a better example to show your protest against capital punishment? And in the same context, Mansi from USA also asked that shouldn't we as a nation start a debate on abolishing the death penalty and work towards that direction?
Yeah, so let me first start with Yakub Memon's case itself and why I took up that case. As some of you might know, Yakub Memon was tried under TADA, which was one of these draconian laws in which confessions made to police officers, even if they were retracted later, were made admissible as evidence, though under the normal law they are not admissible in evidence. He was eventually found guilty by the trial court of conspiracy and sentenced to death, conspiracy in the Bombay blast, sentenced to death, which sentence in his case was upheld by the Supreme Court, though the trial court had sentenced 10 people to death. 9 of them, the Supreme Court changed the sentence or acquitted, but in his case, they upheld the death sentence. Now, the main evidence against him consisted of, regarding his involvement in the conspiracy, was in the form of confessional statements of his co-accused and one person who was made an approver. All except one of these confessions were retracted. In any case, you see, everybody knows that confessions made to the police, police can get you to confess to anything, and that is why under normal laws, police confessions are not admissible in evidence. But in this case, because it was TADA, which was later found to be a draconian law and therefore repealed, this evidence of the confessions of co-accused was used essentially to convict him. The other thing that some of you might know is that the entire Memon family left India soon after the blast. The main conspirator in this, against whom there was considerable evidence, was his brother Tiger Memon. The evidence against other members of the Memon family was very thin and largely consisted of retracted confessions, etc. In fact, one of his sisters, who was eventually convicted and sentenced to life imprisonment by the Supreme Court, the only charge against her was that a car registered in her name was used to carry some of these explosives, despite the fact that she was living in Dubai and she had not been living in India at all during this time. Yakub Memon came back to India from Pakistan via Nepal. The exact circumstances in which he came back is not very clear, but it is clear, what is clear is that the intelligence agencies in India were in touch with him. They persuaded him to come back, and thereafter when he came back, his entire family was he brought his entire family back except Tiger Memon. The rest of the family came back to India at his instance. Now, my own reading of this situation is that if Yakub Memon had been involved in any serious part of this conspiracy, he would not have come back and would not have brought his entire family back. And therefore, my own perception in this is that he was not involved in any serious part of this conspiracy along with his brother Tiger Memon. And he came to be convicted by the Supreme Court essentially on the retracted confessions of his co-accused. That was the main evidence on the basis of which he was convicted. That apart, you see, the Supreme Court's judgment, several judgments said that a person, when his mercy petition is dismissed by the President, he has a right to challenge the dismissal of his mercy petition in the courts. And for that, he needs to be given legal assistance as well as at least 2 weeks' time for him to be able to mount a legal challenge to the dismissal of his mercy petition. Now, in this case, his petition was dismissed by the President only the night before he was hanged, late at night at around 10 p.m. and he was hanged the next morning at 7 a.m. And therefore, a petition was filed at night itself when reports started coming in that the government had recommended to the president to dismiss the mercy petition, that he should be given at least 2 weeks' time to meet his family, to settle his affairs. That's what the Supreme Court had said, as well as to be able to challenge the dismissal of his mercy petition. The Supreme Court, however, said that no, about 2 years ago, his brother had filed a mercy petition, which was filed before the legal process was over, before his review petition was decided, before his curative petition was decided, and which mercy petition did not mention these 3 grounds which were mentioned in his own mercy petition, which was filed the night before he was hanged, in which he had mentioned 3 main grounds. 3 extenuating circumstances. One was that he came back to India willingly, he cooperated fully with the investigative agencies, he provided a lot of evidence regarding Pakistan's involvement, he brought his entire family back, so this was one circumstance. The second was that he was suffering from schizophrenia, which is also a ground for not hanging a person or for remitting a person's death sentence. And the third was that this schizophrenia happened because he was subjected to solitary confinement for a very long time, which is also an extenuating circumstance. So on this basis, this petition was, the mercy petition had been filed by him. And because at least 2 weeks' time should have been given to him after the dismissal of his mercy petition, that is why that petition was filed late at night. It was heard at night by the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court was, of course, gracious enough to hear that fresh petition, but unfortunately they dismissed it and did not allow him that 2 weeks' time to mount a proper challenge to the dismissal of his mercy petition. I got involved in this because I felt that, look, in the circumstances which I saw in this, where I felt that if he had come back and if he had brought his entire family back, it was very unlikely that he was involved in any very serious part of the conspiracy. And in any case, there were enough extenuating circumstances to at least remit his death sentence. And that is why I felt that, because if you see, people get this impression that even though they have come back on some assurance that they would be justly dealt with, and if they were really not involved in any serious part of the conspiracy, and if thereafter they are put to death, apart from the fact that death penalty itself is a serious problem, which I will come to, therefore I got involved in this case. Now, coming to this issue of death penalty, you see, the reason why I oppose death penalty is basically threefold. The main thing is that it is a kind of retributive violence by the state. And it promotes a culture of violence in any society, as we saw in this Yakub Memon case itself, where there was this lynch mob mentality which came out, and this bloodlust which also came out in the way in which a lot of people, especially in the social media, reacted to this whole Yakub Memon hanging. So therefore, the first and the most important argument against the death penalty is that it promotes a culture of violence and this bloodlust or lynch mob mentality in a society, which is not good for any society. The second is that this is irrevocable, and therefore very often, like in the US, a large number of people who were on death row were subsequently found to be innocent. Later, after their trial was over and they were waiting to be put to death, evidence came out that they were in fact innocent. So it's irrevocable. And in any case, it doesn't serve much of a deterrence, because it is supposed to be used in the rarest of rare cases against dreaded terrorists, etc. And these kind of people, many of them or most of them, are prepared to die anyway. And they are not the kind of people who are going to be deterred. It is only the softer people who may be deterred, and it is not meant to be used against those kind of people anyway. So therefore, there are several reasons against the death penalty, and that is why more than 130 countries around the world, and most of the developed countries, most of the civilized countries have done away with death penalty. The three major countries which still have the death penalty are the US, which is there in some of the states in the US, it is legal. It's also there in India, and it's also there in China. And I think the time comes, the Law Commission has recently done a serious study on this, and I believe that they are also recommending doing away with the death penalty, and I believe that the time has come for India also to revisit this whole question and do away with the death penalty, as most countries and particularly most civilized countries have done. Yeah, Raj, you can come with your other question.
Thank you, Prashant ji. I think I hope that your answers and the way you have explained your stand will help people and open their minds and then look at the issue of capital punishment with a broader perspective. So I'll move on to the next question, which is slightly related to that, from one of your well-wishers. This is Rakesh from Jaipur. He has a question that you have been physically assaulted in the past. Don't you feel a need for security cover? Did any government ever offer to you?
Well, this question is raised from time to time also because of the kind of cases that I've been doing against so many corporate houses like Reliance, etc. So many PILs that I have done against the high and mighty in the corporate world as well as in the political world. And therefore people have asked me from time to time that I should be having security. I keep telling them that, look, what I am dealing with is essentially the white collar mafia, and they are not the kind of people who want to get involved in blue collar crime or physical violence, etc. But yes, you are right that now there is another category of people. Unfortunately, you see, the kind of people who assaulted me when I had said something about Kashmir 4 years ago, this is another kind of people who they are kind of lumpen fascists in this country, who also use this as an occasion or as an opportunity to sort of get publicity and draw attention for themselves, because they feel that they will be applauded as heroes if they assault a person like me. Even on this Yakub Memon thing, a lot of the kind of comments and things which were being said on Twitter were by these kind of lumpen fascists, these various senas that have come around, particularly of these Hindutva organizations, like the Shiv Sena. There are various other Hindu Rashtra Sena, this Sena, that Sena. These are all operating broadly under the cover of these saffron organizations. These are mostly saffron organizations, and a lot of them have these kind of lumpen fascists now, who revel in doing this kind of thing also to draw attention and appear as heroes. I mean, this is the heroism that they see for themselves, that they have gone to the office of somebody who was unarmed and assaulted him and so on. So therefore, this is a problem which some people in my family felt, and therefore I do have a personal security officer whom I have, my family has engaged for me, but I have not asked the government for any security. Once or twice some police people a few times have come to me saying that whether I would like some security from the police agencies, but I have declined that.
Thank you, Prashant ji, for expanding on the issue of personal security and the threats that you face because of the work you do. So this actually leads me to the next question, which is from Manish in Uttarakhand. He says the current government and the BJP is filling all institutions, educational, governmental, constitutional, with nominees of a particular bent of thinking, whether it is on the religious side, the communal side, or whether it is of a particular business orientation as such. Should we be worried about this? And how big a danger do you think this is to the inclusive and secular fabric of India?
Yes, this is a very, very serious problem, and it's a very, very dangerous thing that is happening in this country. That in a very, very coolly calculated manner, the present BJP government is filling or is trying to pack all, firstly, academic institutions, educational bodies like the NCERT, the UGC, the Indian Council for Historical Research, and many such bodies, even the Film and Television Institute of India, all such bodies with these RSS or Hindutva people who are loosely affiliated to the BJP or these saffron organizations. These people not only have a saffron and in many cases a kind of semi-fascist thinking and ideology, but they are also people who are singularly unqualified, academically unqualified for these jobs. The Congress people also used to appoint sometimes people affiliated to the Congress party to such bodies when they were in power. But by and large, if you see, this is a good article that was written recently by Pratap Bhanu Mehta, where he pointed out that while the Congress appointed, or not Pratap Bhanu Mehta, I think it was this Ramchandra Guha who wrote that article, sorry. He said that when the Congress appointed affiliated people to such institutions or left intellectuals, etc., they were regarded as intellectuals and academic heavyweights by the academic world. But here what we are seeing is not just people with a saffron ideology and saffron thinking, but people who are singularly unqualified, who have nothing, like this Gajendra Chauhan. I mean, apart from the fact that he acted as Yudhishthir in that Mahabharat serial, his other claim to fame is acting in these B-grade films like Khuli Khidki, etc. He has, if you see the lineage of the kind of people who have headed the FTII, and then you see the credentials of Gajendra Chauhan, this gives you an example of the kind of degeneration that is taking place. So you not only have these saffron ideologues who are sometimes communal, semi-fascist, etc., but you also have people who are absolutely, I mean, intellectually, singularly unqualified for these jobs. So this is a very serious problem.
Thank you, Prashantji. Another related question from Ankur in Haridwar, which relates to the constitutional position of the CIC and the CVC. Specifically, when the candidate was being chosen and you had come out in public against that. Where exactly do you stand with that situation, the case, and your appeals? Would you like to please give us an update on that?
Yes, we have filed a petition challenging in the Supreme Court, challenging the appointment of the two CVCs. One is Mr. K.V. Chaudhary, another is Mr. Bhasin. There are very serious charges against them of corruption or of protecting the corrupt. Against Mr. Bhasin, the charge is that he, in fact, fabricated and that was a charge made by the CVC itself, by the earlier CVC itself, that he fabricated the confidential record of one of the officers working under him in the Indian Bank in order to prevent him from being promoted. That he substituted the actual appraisal report by another fabricated appraisal report later. Similarly, the charge against Chaudhary, who has been appointed as the Chief Vigilance Commissioner, I had written a letter to the Prime Minister before his appointment, when we started getting information that he was the front runner, which I had listed several charges. If you go to my Twitter of about month and a half ago, you will find that letter where I had mentioned a number of very serious charges against him. So anyway, that petition has been filed. It will probably come up for hearing in the next couple of weeks, next week or so, and then let's see what the Supreme Court does.
Thank you for the update. The next question is from Shalini in Panchkula, Haryana. She asked, there have been multiple cases where justice is elusive for years and decades. Cases have gone on for ages, but at the same time, some celebrities and influential people get bail almost instantly, while a common man has to wait for weeks, months to get a hearing. Who exactly is responsible for this?
Well, it's really the judiciary which is responsible for this. Unfortunately, the judiciary also does get influenced by the influence of the person who is the petitioner or the litigant before them. And it is true that justice through the judicial system in this country is not even-handed. Firstly, of course, the majority of the people cannot even access the courts because they can't afford lawyers. Even if they can access the courts, the majority of the cases keep languishing for years altogether. And thereafter, even when they come to be decided, they often come to be decided wrongly, either because of the incompetence of the judge or because of corruption or because of influence and nepotism. Unfortunately, all these problems are there in our judicial system. The problem is that neither the government nor the judiciary is really interested in judicial reforms. We would in fact need to have a movement in this country, a public movement for judicial reforms of the same kind that we did on the anti-corruption movement. We need to have a large popular movement of the consumers of justice, of the people who need the courts and need a functional judicial system for justice. The government and the courts are not interested, unfortunately.
Prashant, you've actually answered quite the next question that was coming up. So I'll briefly touch on it. It was essentially about how do courts take up cognizance and suo motu cases. For example, given the Vyapam scam, where the deaths were quite prominent, and the Supreme Court took its while before it moved, the NRHM scam in UP. Which leads me to the question is, what would you see Swaraj Abhiyan doing in terms of ensuring that our judiciary acts on sort of these blatant cases or very obvious cases of judicial injustice as such for local people, or bigger cases like scams and so on?
Well, so far as some of these are concerned, I mean, they can be taken up in the courts. What Swaraj Abhiyan needs to do is to probably develop a network of good public interest lawyers across the country. For example, there is this new case that we have filed about the Chhattisgarh public distribution system scam, in which this Raman Singh, the Chief Minister of Chhattisgarh, is fully involved, and where in fact the kingpin of the scam, a man called Bhatt, who was earlier caught red-handed accepting a bribe, against him prosecution sanction was not granted by Raman Singh, and therefore he did not come to be prosecuted despite being caught red-handed. He was caught red-handed in 2006, and thereafter in 2010 he was made the head of the public distribution system in Chhattisgarh, and now of course it's turned out to be a 20,000 crore scam in which Raman Singh and various others are involved. Now there is a PIL that we have filed about that, which is coming up on Monday. Hopefully the Supreme Court will take it up and will ensure that an SIT or a CBI investigates this and the Supreme Court monitors this. Some of these things have to be tackled in the courts by having proper public interest lawyers. The high courts also will try and develop a network of such lawyers. But the deeper thing is to really mount a public campaign on judicial reforms. And that's one of the things that Swaraj Abhiyan should really be taking up as it goes forward. I mean, as we develop, as more and more people get involved with Swaraj Abhiyan, and as we develop the capacity to take up more issues, this is certainly one of the very important issues which we need to take up.
Thank you. And keeping with the theme of reforms, there's another question here from Adil on Twitter. He mentions about the can we take all states to the Supreme Court on the non-implementation of the 2006 directive on police reforms? Again, as we've seen, reforms are held back because of vested interests. So can you briefly touch on that, on the issue of police reforms?
Yes, you see, in 2006, the Supreme Court gave an important judgment about police reforms, in which they had said that in order to, well, that judgment is about one major aspect of police reforms, which is to insulate the police from excessive control of their political bosses. So they had said that you should have a statutory state security commission, you should have a police establishment board, essentially consisting of senior police officers to decide transfers and postings of police officers rather than the politicians deciding it, that you should have a minimum tenure for field officers at all levels. They also said that you need to have an independent police complaints authority at the district level as well as at the state level. Now, most of these directions of the Supreme Court remain unimplemented. They had also said that you need to separate the investigative wing of the police from the law and order wing of the police, so that these function as two separate departments virtually of the police. Most of these remain unimplemented by the states. They were largely to be implemented by the states because police by and large is with the states. Central government also had to do it with the police, which is under the central government's control, the union territories, etc., like in Delhi or in other union territories. They have also not done it. We have filed petitions of contempt in the Supreme Court, which are pending, which are heard from time to time. But unfortunately, the Supreme Court has also been a little slow in getting its own orders implemented. And that's why it's been languishing now for such a long time.
Thank you, Prashant ji. Agla sawal, the next question is from Hitesh from Lucknow. He wants to know on communalism. Is there any way for maintaining peace and harmony throughout the country in the current scenario, where we have seen multiple communal incidents and riots take place due to various reasons, and they happen without rhyme or reason? And how do we contribute towards maintaining peace? What is the solution?
Actually, this, to my mind, this growing and incipient creeping communalism in the country, which is being kind of fanned and fed by these various Hindutva organizations, largely by these, some also by the communal Muslim organizations. This, to my mind, is a very, very serious problem which is brewing up in this country. And it's also a very dangerous thing. It's also serious apprehension with the present government because of their past history, because of their involvement with these various communal organizations and these RSS type of organizations, which have been sort of given free rein since this government has come to power. The best way to fight it is at the citizens level itself. And that is why we have said that one of the jobs of Swaraj Abhiyan should be to form these Aman committees in every district in the country, at least in all those sensitive districts which are communal hotspots where there has been a history of communal problems, etc. So these Aman committees should consist of very sober and respected people from different communities who should be brought together, and their job should be to try and find ways and means of improving interaction, communication, and understanding among members, particularly leaders of different communities in that district. So for that, they can do various things, ensure that there are that the festivals of different communities are held in such a manner that people from other communities can also participate in those other various ways of ensuring better interaction, better understanding, better communication among communities. This is, to my mind, the most important way of combating this communal problem. Other than that, we can try and use the courts. The courts are supposed to be a bulwark against these kind of communal problems. They are supposed to enforce the rule of law and ensure that this kind of communalism is not allowed to be propagated. Um, Therefore, we can try and use the courts also. Some institutional reforms are also required, which people like Harsh Mandar and others have been suggesting from time to time. And those institutional reforms, of course, this government will not do. Those laws will not be brought. Maybe the courts can also be activated for that. So we'll have to work on all these fronts, but the most important front is to mobilize citizens against this at all levels.
Thank you, Prashant ji. Now we move on to the current government and its development model. The next question, अगला सवाल स्वाति from गुजरात. उनका सवाल ये है कि इस बार काफी ज्यादा सीटों के साथ मोदी सरकार जीत कर आई है. मुझे कोई सुधार नहीं दिखता देश में. कुछ लोग कहते हैं कि जीडीपी बढ़ रहा है, मेक इन इंडिया चल रहा है. आप मोदी के डेवलपमेंट मॉडल को कैसे देखते हैं? और इससे एक जुड़ता हुआ क्वेश्चन और एक है फ्रॉम सुनील फ्रॉम बिहार. ही सेज थिंग्स लाइक बुलेट ट्रेन जैसी सिर्फ पॉपुलर इनिशिएटिव है, उससे कोई इकोनॉमी पे फर्क नहीं पड़ने वाला. आपका इसका क्या सुझाव है? सो इट्स द होल इश्यू इज अबाउट, सवाल ये है कि डेवलपमेंट मॉडल जो आज की गवर्नमेंट नरेंद्र मोदी गवर्नमेंट फॉलो कर रही है, उसके ऊपर आपका विचार क्या है?
ये भी बहुत अहम सवाल है. मोदी जी का डेवलपमेंट मॉडल करीब करीब वही है जो कि इनके पहले यूपीए की सरकार का था, कि हमको अपना जीडीपी तेजी से बढ़ाना है. इन्होंने बस उसमें एक जरा सा जुमला लगाया है. वो कहते हैं कि मेक इन इंडिया, कि हिंदुस्तान को जैसे चीन ने एक मैन्युफैक्चरिंग हब बना लिया चीन को, वैसे ही हिंदुस्तान को वो एक मैन्युफैक्चरिंग हब बनाना चाहते हैं चीन के मॉडल पर. और कहते हैं कि हम बाहर की विदेशी कंपनियों को खुला इनविटेशन देंगे और उसी के लिए ये लैंड एक्विजिशन एक्ट को कमज़ोर करने की कोशिश, जिससे कि जल्दी तेजी से ज़मीन एक्वायर करके इन कंपनियों को दी जा सके. उसी वजह से एनवायरमेंटल रेगुलेशंस को भी ढीला किया जा रहा है, जिससे कि कोई एनवायरमेंटल क्लियरेंस लेने में कोई दिक्कत ना हो, फटाफट एनवायरमेंटल क्लियरेंस मिल जाए. लेकिन ये चल नहीं पाएगा, चल नहीं रहा है और चल भी नहीं सकता. तो उसके कई वजह हैं. पहली वजह तो ये है कि इस मॉडल को चलने के लिए आपको बहुत सारे ये नेचुरल रिसोर्सेज की ज़रूरत पड़ती है. आपको ज़मीन तो खैर ज़रूरत पड़ेगी, ज़मीन के अलावा आपको ऑयल एंड गैस, आपको आयरन ओर, आपको कोयला, आपको एल्युमिनियम, इन सब रॉ मटेरियल्स की ज़रूरत पड़ती है. इन सारे रॉ मटेरियल्स का, ऑयल एंड गैस वगैरह सबका प्रोडक्शन अब दुनिया में कम हो रहा है और कम होता जाएगा. हिंदुस्तान में भी कम हो रहा है और पूरे दुनिया में कम हो रहा है और कम होता जाएगा, क्योंकि ये ख़त्म होते जा रहे हैं. तो इस वजह से आप बगैर रॉ मटेरियल के मैन्युफैक्चरिंग हब या मैन्युफैक्चरिंग इंडस्ट्री को बहुत बढ़ा नहीं सकते। दूसरी बात यह है कि हिंदुस्तान का जो कॉस्ट ऑफ मैन्युफैक्चरिंग है, आज हम चीन से कम कॉस्ट में नहीं प्रोड्यूस कर सकते, और ऑलरेडी इस समय मैन्युफैक्चर्ड गुड्स का ग्लट है, यानी कि जितनी जरूरत है, जितना डिमांड है, उससे ज्यादा प्रोडक्शन हो रहा है दुनिया में, और चीन बहुत ज्यादा प्रोड्यूस कर रहा है। इतनी इतनी डिमांड है नहीं दुनिया में। हिंदुस्तान अगर उनसे कम दाम में बना पाए तब तो हम उनसे कम्पीट कर सकते हैं, लेकिन हम लोग उससे कम दाम में अभी बना नहीं सकते। तीसरी बात यह है कि ये लैंड एक्विजिशन एक्ट को ये ढीला करना चाहते हैं, लेकिन वो ढीला कर नहीं पा रहे हैं क्योंकि मेजॉरिटी नहीं है। और अगर कर भी लिया कानून को ढीला, तो जगह जगह ग्राउंड लेवल पर बड़े बड़े आंदोलन इस पर हो चुके हैं। उसके बाद ही 2013 का लैंड एक्विजिशन एक्ट लाया गया था, जिसमें दो अच्छे सुधार करे गए थे। एक तो सोशल इम्पैक्ट असेसमेंट जरूरी होगा, ये देखने के लिए जिसके लिए आप जमीन अक्वायर कर रहे हैं उससे क्या कोई या क्या वो कोई बेहतर यूटिलाइजेशन है उस जमीन का। और दूसरा ये कि 70 से 80% फार्मर्स की मंजूरी चाहिए होती है आपको लैंड एक्विजिशन के लिए। ये दोनों चीजें मोदी अपने ऑर्डिनेंस से खत्म करना चाहते थे, लेकिन वो ऑर्डिनेंस को पास नहीं करा पाए पार्लियामेंट में, और न ही करा पाएंगे। इस वजह से वो भी नहीं हो पाएगा। जो ये एनवायरमेंटल रेगुलेशन ढीले कर रहे हैं, वो भी अब कोर्ट्स जो हैं उसको रोकेंगे, वो ढीले आसानी से नहीं कर पाएंगे। इस वजह से ये पूरा जो इनका मॉडल है ये चल नहीं सकता। जहां तक ये बुलेट ट्रेन वगैरह की बात है, बुलेट ट्रेन तो बिल्कुल ही हिंदुस्तान के लिए सूटेबल नहीं है, क्योंकि उसका कॉस्ट जो है, जो नॉर्मल ट्रेन है, देखिए इस पर एक अध्ययन किया था, एक चीफ इंजीनियर थे, उन्होंने पूरा इसका अध्ययन करके मुझे पूरा समझाया था कि बुलेट ट्रेन का पर किलोमीटर कॉस्ट है करीब 100 करोड़ पर किलोमीटर, क्योंकि उसके लिए आपको नया ट्रैक बनाना पड़ेगा, नया लैंड एक्वायर करना पड़ेगा, नए ट्रैक्स बनाने पड़ेंगे, फर्क तरह के ट्रैक्स बनाने पड़ेंगे, और उसका कॉस्ट करीब 100 करोड़ पर किलोमीटर आएगा। अगर आज आप जो हमारे एग्जिस्टिंग रेलवे ट्रैक्स हैं उसी को थोड़ा अपग्रेड कर दें, तो आप उस पर ट्रेन डबल स्पीड पर चला सकते हैं। आज जैसे 100 किलोमीटर पर चलती है, 200 किलोमीटर पर चला सकते हैं। बुलेट ट्रेन तो 400 किलोमीटर पर चलती है, लेकिन आप 200 किलोमीटर पर उसी ट्रैक्स को थोड़ा सा अपग्रेड करके चला सकते हैं। उसका कॉस्ट सिर्फ 10 करोड़ रुपए पर किलोमीटर आएगा। तो अभी तो आप उसको पहले अपग्रेड करके चलाइए। आप ये 100 करोड़ रुपए पर किलोमीटर, यानी कि एक अहमदाबाद से लेकर बंबई की जो ये लोग बुलेट ट्रेन सोच रहे हैं, उसमें 60,000 करोड़ रुपया लगेगा। उसका क्या सेंस बनता है? हिंदुस्तान के लिए तो कोई सेंस नहीं बनता, उसका कोई इकोनॉमिक सेंस नहीं बनता। उतना पैसा आप उससे बना ही नहीं सकते।
Thank you, Prashant ji. So you touched on the land acquisition that is very crucial to this Chinese model that Modi government is following. Recently, yesterday we heard that they are not going to try and pass the bill, and they're going to send it to the states, the Land Acquisition Act, the Land Acquisition Bill. So, what do you think is where our focus should be, and where we can keep more attention on now that it has gone back to the states? What are the things that we need to be careful about so that the same bill does not come back, the same amendments do not come back in some other form?
So actually, this is the new thing that they have thought of, because once they realize that they will not be able to get this passed in parliament, so they thought that at least in some states where they are in a majority, where the BJP is in a majority, where they have their government, they can get these kind of amendments which they brought through the ordinance. The same things could be passed in the states, and if they are approved by the president, which means by the central government, then they become law in that state, despite the fact that that state law would be against the central law. Normally the central law prevails over any state law, But if a state law on a subject which is in the concurrent list, this is also in the concurrent list. If the state law is made later and if it receives the assent of the president, which the BJP government will give, then that state law prevails in that state. So they are trying ki they will get these same amendments passed in the states where they are in control, and they will approve them, and this will become the law in those states. This needs to be opposed in those states, so we need to mount ground level campaigns. All those organizations which have worked on issues of land, the farmers organizations, etc., should mount a public campaign in those states to stop those states from amending the laws in those states. Your voice has gone, your sound has gone. I can't hear you.
Sorry, I was on mute. So now we move on to the next section about questions related mainly to Swaraj Abhiyan and the organization and the latest updates on that. So as part of that, one of the questions or one of the queries that have come in from the users is about the Swaraj Abhiyan Anti-Corruption Forum or the committee that is being formed. Can you give us a brief idea about what it is and how you see it being put in practice?
No, the idea is only that we should form local self-help groups in every district, which should be able to take up the local corruption issues in that district, whether by way of highlighting it in the public, exposing the corruption there, or whether by way of taking it up in the courts. So that would be part of the Swaraj Kendra that we form district by district. The Swaraj Kendra would help people with RTI, should be able to take up local corruption issues by way of either public exposés or public hearings like the MKSS had been doing to expose corruption in the local public distribution scams or other scams. So therefore, broadly that was the idea that we should. That is, of course, apart from this, we'll also need to focus on larger issues of governance, which includes changes in the laws relating to corruption, or changes in the method of appointing people like the Central Vigilance Commissioners or Lokpals and so on and so forth. So those are larger systemic issues which we will have to take up at the national level of Swaraj Abhiyan. But all this will happen as our capacity grows. As more and more people get involved with it, then we will be able to do these things.
Thank you, Prashant ji. So this actually leads me to a question where this is Jayan Cherian from Bengaluru. Seems upset on the fact that Swaraj Abhiyan promised to get itself under RTI and had also appointed a PIO, but it seems the work has stopped in this direction. He wants to know that it will be fulfilled and within what timeline.
Yes, that's true. We do need to actually, instead of having a sort of PIO under the RTI Act or whatever, what we should try and do is put out everything proactively on our website. The minutes of our meetings and so on, or whatever, at least the decisions taken in our meetings. We need to also, as we had thought initially, we need to get our Liquid Democracy Act together also, in order to be able to ascertain what our members are thinking on different issues and what they want on different issues, so as to be able to act by and large on the wishes of our members, on the views and wishes of our members. Uh, Actually, the problem is that right now we are still pretty strapped in terms of the number of people who are there to handle all these things. As I said, we need we need more volunteers, we need more capacity to handle many of these things. As and when we get that, we should be able to do these things. But I agree that it's very important for Swaraj Abhiyan to be transparent and proactively transparent. Not just transparent, but also democratic in its functioning.
So, which again leads me to the next question from one of the supporters, is about the committees and the sort of state committees that have been formed within Swaraj Abhiyan. So the question here is, on what basis have they been formed, and what is the sort of timeline for member elections or sort of an elective process to be put in place?
Yeah, we are hoping that we should be able to have elections by January next year. So we should have a formal membership thing done by the end of September, so that because our constitution says that a person needs to be a member for at least 4 months in order to be able to vote. So we should have the sort of first freeze of our membership by the end of September, after which we should be able to hold our first elections by the end of January in order to elect our state committees, at least our state committees, if not our district committees.
Okay. So this is the last question that I've taken from Pradeep Gudla in USA. He wants to know, what role can Swaraj Abhiyan play in the space of striving for a change for better living, and how is it different from the role of a political party? Do you think these spaces can be non-intersecting?
Better living, I don't know what he means by that.
As in improving the lot of our citizens of India, as in the quality of governance that they can have, the lifestyle that they live, and making sure that the basic injustices, the basic basics of their life are catered for, and that they get their rights, and there's no injustice in that sense. It's a bit unclear, that question. I've just read it out, but I'm trying to expand on it.
That's what we are trying to do with this Jai Kisan Andolan. See, our farmers are in the worst situation of all time, and the farmers have never been in such a bad situation as they are in now, and therefore we are trying to ensure that at least the whole country focuses on the problems of the farmers, that farming has become a losing proposition. They are not even able to get a subsistence wage out of farming. So therefore, we need to ensure that they get that the support price for farming produce is adequate for farmers to be able to get at least minimum wages from their labor on their farms. That agriculture moves towards a more sustainable, ecological kind of agriculture, uh, away from the present chemical pesticide agriculture that we have got into, which is a vicious circle which is leading us to use more and more chemical fertilizers, which is depleting the uh, nutrition of the soil, because chemical fertilizers do not put in micronutrients as organic manure does. It only puts in NPK, as it is called. Similarly, we are having to use more and more pesticides every year because pests get resistant to these pesticides, with the result that farmers are getting cancer. People who eat foods which are laden with pesticides also get cancer. So very, very serious problem. And we need to get out of this vicious circle of chemical pesticide farming and move towards a more sustainable organic farming. All this fertilizer, about 1 lakh crore, which is given for chemical fertilizers, can be easily shifted towards organic manure and other things. One of the reasons for farmers' suicides is also because they have to take loans for buying chemical fertilizers, for buying pesticides, for buying these hybrid seeds. We need to move them out of this. So, yeah, we should definitely look at the basic needs of people and ensure that especially the most vulnerable sections of our society get those needs, and which is why we have started with farmers, because they are the most vulnerable right now.
Thank you, Prashantji. We've just fit almost on time now, so I'm going to end this with a short message for the rest of the viewers and those listening in. As you know, that we are still, as Prashantji explained, that we're still in the organization building stages, and we're still building up capacity. So if you do want to volunteer and help out in any aspects, we need volunteers and in all different areas. So whether it is to do with social media, whether it is to do with groundwork or ground support, so please go to our website, swarajabhiyan.org, and click on register and indicate the areas that you think you can help out with. That will help us put you and connect you with the right team. The second message
would be most welcome as well.
Pardon, sir?
Donations would be most welcome as well, because we are very short.
So financially also, donations wise also, while we're still not taking donation directly on the website, there is information where you can do it through online banking. The details can be found on the Swaraj Abhiyan website, as well as through all of our social media channels like the Facebook page or Twitter or so on. If you do have if you can't find that information, please connect to us through the helpline. The number is there on the website, so you can always call in and take those details. As Prashantji said, we are working towards greater systems of transparency and accountability, and you will start seeing more and more of the systems coming onto our website. So whether it is to with the selection of our the committees and the state committees, as well as the financial side of things. The next message is mainly to do with the Jai Kisan Andolan's tractor march, which reaches Delhi on the 9th and 10th. The 10th is the main event where Jantar Mantar, where we will be collecting at Jantar Mantar and then putting the demands. A lot of our Kisan brothers and sisters will be coming in from all over the country. They are not coming in just from Punjab, Haryana, and Western UP, where the march has taken place through, but they will also be coming in from Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Karnataka, and all over the country. So they will be joining in, and we expect people who are in Delhi to also join them in support. One of the things we see is supporters says, how do we actually help our farmers? We are worried about the problems they face. So this is one way where you can show support and solidarity by standing shoulder to shoulder with them during the Jai Kisan Andolan's tractor march on the 10th. With that, I end tonight's hangout with Prashantji. And thank you, Prashantji, for taking the time and explaining us your views and your thoughts on the various aspects and the questions sent in by the viewers. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Good night to everybody.
Okay. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.